Good afternoon. We thank God for this opportunity. He's giving us time and again to engage Reverend Alan in this Friday conversations with Reverend Alan. I take this opportunity just to invite him to guide us in this particular show. Karibu, Reverend Alan.
Thank you. I welcome you once again. Remember, we've been discussing about toxic relationships. We started with toxic relationship and we defined and we were able to engage about what a toxic relationship is. And it was followed by a toxic husband because we wanted to deal with toxic relationship in marriage first. So we started with a toxic husband. We defined a toxic husband. And then today I want us to discuss about a toxic wife, because every time you mention a husband, there is a wife. If we have toxic husbands, it means there's a possibility we could be having toxic wives. That's where I want us to venture. Therefore, I welcome you in this conversation.
Thank you. We are going to pick up to discuss about toxic wives, and we have our able counselor, psychological counselor, Janet Surum Kiplagat from University of Kabianga. Karibu sana. We enjoy you having you around. So we want to discuss about toxic wives. We had issues with toxic husbands, and today we are given an opportunity through Reverend Alan to talk about toxic wives or girlfriends in that matter. So I want us to begin by describing what is a toxic wife or who is a toxic wife.
So I will still come to how we started with toxic relationship. We discussed a toxic relationship to be that relationship that people are hurt in that relationship, and those that are hurting them are not concerned about their hurting. It's a relationship that is only about love, that I am loved, therefore I can do anything to the people that love me. So people are hooked up in relationship that are hurting. And we spoke about toxic husband. I say it's a husband that just thinks about himself, keeps on hurting the wife, keeps on hurting the people around him, doing things that are not so good. Therefore, a toxic wife is a wife that keeps on hurting the husband.
Or the boyfriend.
Or the man in her life.
And the man in her life who is not the father.
Yeah.
A man who have sexual relationship with a woman.
Yeah. Sometimes it could be a concubine. Sometimes it could be
a mistress.
A mister.
A mistress.
A toxic wife is a mistress to a man. So sometimes it could be that man that you are his mistress. Sometimes it could just be a loose sexual relationship.
Okay, I think we are classifying from the married wife to the concubine to the mistress and also. So, Janet, I remember last week you talked about toxic masculinity leads to toxic femininity. Who is a toxic wife?
A toxic wife to me is a girlfriend, a woman who emits more negativity than positivity, who emits more, who has more of negative energy than positive.
Yeah. Maybe a good scripture is the Proverbs that King Solomon says a woman, it's better to stay at the corner of a rooftop than to stay with a bickering woman, a bickering wife. That's a toxic wife.
And he also continues to say it is better to eat leaves than a good meal with a nagging woman. Yeah, so I think toxicity is defined when women, be it a wife, be it a girlfriend, a concubine, a mistress, a second wife, a third wife, all categories of women who have sexual relationship with a man, they begin to emit negativity. They begin to control or hurt the people they love, or they enjoy love but they don't give love back. From Reverend Alan to our psychological counselor here, Janet, have given us those quite elaborate definitions of who is a toxic wife, which leads me to this question that we always ask in this show about toxicity. How do you know that someone is toxic? What are some of the characters? What are some of the signs? What are some of the red flags in a relationship, in the marriage? How do you say this is a toxic woman or a toxic wife, girlfriend, concubine, mistress, second wife, third wife?
I would speak like a pastor. I've seen different kinds of marriages and spousal relationship in marriage. I've seen some women that just take care of themselves. They don't care about their husbands. I've seen wives that they are so smart. They dress so well. They keep themselves but when you meet with the husband, they are dirty. They don't have clothes. I've seen wives that they leave their husbands just to be like house helps in their houses. I've seen wives that keep on shouting at their husbands in front of people. So I will begin by saying a toxic wife is a wife that looks down. One characteristic is she looks down upon her husband. She looks down upon her husband. She despises the husband. Whenever there is an argument, she would always make the husband to feel like he's a second generation citizen. Sometimes it gets so elaborate by the way this wife relates with other men. They make other men to look better than their husband. Actually, most toxic wives, they end up sleeping with other men outside their marriage. And secondly, if you're having a wife, you can always know them. The way they become so excited about other men apart from their husbands. You can always know them by the way they are treating you. They deny their husbands necessary rights in life. Necessary rights like conjugal rights. They don't like, because they look down upon this man. Or they make this man to become a sexual machine for them only. Nothing like relationship. A toxic wife, I would actually say, apart from denying conjugal rights, they don't care whether their man eats or he doesn't eat. They don't care about the job of their man. So they deny him that necessary support that a man needs to continue. You will always know by the character of keep on shouting and quarreling at the man. He keeps on dismissing the man, putting the man down, making sure that the man feels like he's not the man of the house. Maybe Janet can keep on building on what we are discussing so that we can enrich the conversation.
So Janet, Pastor Alan, as Reverend Alan has given us some signs, characters of a toxic wife, girlfriend. What is your take as a woman?
Okay, I mark what he said from the beginning. He talked about the scripture that talks strongly about using the very strong verb, action verb, bickering. So I believe that a woman should be graceful. Graceful meaning everything you do should be measured. You just can't you can't be too extroverted, especially towards your man. You should have limits. That's what I believe as a person and not psychology. So a woman who talks a lot, even when it's unnecessary, because men require their quiet time. So every time you have something to say from morning to evening, be it a story, be it complaining, be it what, that is, you are being toxic, because men love their quiet time. Another thing about a toxic woman, Reverend said they treat their men as inferior. And at that, they compare. Yeah, so this man versus this man. Like, look at that husband, look at that boyfriend. Hey, she was bought for something, I don't know, for the birthday. So the kids go to which school? And all the time making the man, crushing the ego of the man. All the time. By the way, when you compare your man to someone else, you are crushing their ego. This is a unique person. And what made you choose them, you are the only one who knows. So you should continue with that, what made you choose them. Another thing, they talk ill about their husbands to other people.
Or
boyfriend, yes. One thing I strongly believe, even if your husband or boyfriend has the greatest of weaknesses, the best you can do is to protect them. Because these toxic people, these toxic women, they are not going to leave you. So they continue publicizing your weaknesses, and it crushes the ego of the man. So the man is killed and the man is still alive. Another thing, they play victim card. Every time they are the victims. In any situation, in any argument, it has to end by the man apologizing and doing 1, 2, 3 things to appease the woman. So if you always are the one who is being wronged, you demand an apology, then you are very toxic, actually.
Maybe in the victim part, apart from her playing the victim always in every argument or something, they normally also play a victim like their being in that marriage is a suffering. It's like they are actually persevering to be in that marriage. They are sympathizing with you. That's why they are in that marriage. They play like you lied to them to bring them into that marriage. That marriage is not that which they anticipated. They normally make you to feel like you have to do a lot to make them remain in that marriage. Actually, they are doing you a favor to be your wife. You know, now I'm dealing with a toxic wife. And I would actually say, toxicity in a wife is normally a matter of attitude. A certain attitude normally develops in a woman that she comes to a place and begin to feel like this is not a man enough for me. So all her behaviors begins to tell the man and to tell the world, this is not a man enough for me. That's why she sleeps with other men. That's why she insults the man. The man is enthroned. Her work is to dethrone this man. The man is somebody to be celebrated. Her work is to make sure that a man is not celebrated. He tries to do everything that will make her man not to feel like a man. Make sure I'm not serving him. Make sure I'm not clothing him. Everything to make sure that this man, their work is to kill this man, to make this man not to be a man. And they normally have a certain advantage over this man, and they would always pretend like they can live. Actually, mark my word, pretend. Toxic wives, unlike toxic husbands, toxic wives cannot live. They always pretend that they can leave this marriage at any time because you depend on them. Until that time, you find freedom. That's the time that you will know that they are not ready to leave that marriage.
Interesting. We are talking about wives, girlfriends. The other issue maybe on toxicity is they can date this man forever. They are not committed in that relationship. They are playing around with you, and then they move on with another person. And then another thing about toxic women or girlfriend or wives is they control. They control the emotions. They control the thinking. They manipulate the outcome of the event. They control on how to spend, decisions you make, and they will always want to pull you away from your family. They will always want to isolate you. There's that issue of isolation whereby it's like they possess you alone. You are not owned by other people. You don't have your time. You know, men are free molecules. I read a book about men being wild. They like to be wild. They like to be free. But this one wants to tame you. He wants to tame your decisions, to tame where you live, to tame where you go. They're the ones who decide when you will leave, when you'll come back. And there's the issue of manipulation. They manipulate a man emotionally, and they also manipulate a man psychologically. They enter into your heart and really sit on you, and really, they're the ones who decide when you will be happy and when you'll be sad. They're the ones who decide when you will feel strong and when you will feel weak. I think
actually,
you can add more.
In control, they control the conversation. They want to control who you are speaking with because they are afraid that you may gain freedom. They control even where you go for church. If they discover that you're going to get your ego in this church, they will pull you out of that church and take you elsewhere. They have a way, most of them, almost 100%, they have a problem with the husband's family. They would always try as much as possible to demonize your family, to make sure that the husband's family looks bad and takes the husband from his family, even not allowing the husband to go to his family. Actually, some of them even have problem. Your mother or your father or your siblings coming to visit you, or you going home to visit them. And in some extreme cases, they even control your wallet. They take your salary, they take all your earning, and it's like they have become your manager and your accountant, all of them together. And they would always prefer their family above your family. They control the friends that you're having. They want you to be a friend to the people that they want, weakling people or corrupt people that they can manipulate to manipulate you. They don't want you to have independent friends. Again, I would actually say they always keep secrets from the husband, secrets of investments. They go into business alliances with other people in the back of the husband because their attitude is, this man is a lesser man than the man that I'm supposed to be having. And above all, very quarrelsome, even in front of the people. They can shout you down. I used to hear about a staff room, a toxic wife. She would come to the staff room when the husband is taking tea with other teachers and beat up the teacher and pull him out. And the teacher can do nothing because he's caring about his image.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that aspect that you're talking about controlling is really cannot be underemphasized, because even your phone, when your phone rings, who has called you? Who are you talking to? This is a new number. And like you said,
You're forever in a police station.
You are in a police station. Your friends should be, so they control you in such a way that they give you friends. They disconnect you even from your friends. And these toxic women again, and this toxic femininity, they have this tendency of not taking care of the man. I know many may not agree with me, but the thing is, a woman is supposed to take care of the husband, etc., and the rest. You're supposed to submit in the sense that you have to know what they will wear, if their clothes are clean, what they will eat for dinner. Not that belief that I cook tea, you prepare chapati. As in, it's half. If I do this, someone else has to do this. That is not also good. Another thing, they are not supportive of your dreams. They are not supportive of the decisions that you're making. Every time you try to come up maybe with an investment, they downplay it. They tell you that this thing will not work. If you tell them, I want to go back to school, there are women like that. I want to go back to school. They give you all the reasons why it is not a good idea. And funny enough, the victim husband will agree. Or boyfriend. They will agree. Another thing, they hate your mother if they are alive, that is. They really hate your mother. And every time I've heard of a woman who never has anything positive to say about the mother-in-law. You see, the fact is, a husband's or a boyfriend's first love was the mother, and will always be, whether they tell you or not. And that is now psychological. It is proven. So, if a woman keeps talking ill of your mother, your sisters, your brothers, that is a toxic woman. Because if they accept you, they should accept you, including where you come from. Yeah.
Interesting. I think the conversation is rolling and getting better every day. And I'm also thinking about, they beat the husband.
Domestic violence.
Yeah, domestic violence is only because men don't speak up, or when you go to report, the police tend to say it is you, because a lot of trauma or domestic violence is actually advanced with the male person.
I lived near somebody that used to beat the woman used to beat the husband and scream. So when people get closer, she jumps from sitting on the husband and then she pretends that she's the one down. And since she's been sleeping with men around there, those men come and beat up the husband. And I've seen another one that normally takes the husband to the police, compromises the police come and arrest the husband, just very abusive.
Okay. And then the issue, Janet has spoken about the issue of the phone. I was just about to ask, is it toxic when a wife snoops or looks into the husband's phone?
We had this conversation earlier on, and I still maintain it is toxic.
It is toxic.
And the question was, you see, a phone is a personal space. Is a personal space. And this one is not even to encourage infidelity.
You know, Janet, phones are avenues of extramarital or extra relationships. Yeah. So I want us to have a clear conversation, because in as much as it's personal, some people abuse phones. I've known people who've gone into being pornographic addicts, gambling, and all those messes, and then they end up leaving the family somewhere. I've seen people crying in relationship. In as much as you wanted to be liberal, to leave that phone as it should be. And I want us to discuss the issue of, because I saw somewhere when a husband comes in, the wife picks the phone and she scrolls. She wants to see you talked with somebody for how long.
That's abuse.
And all that. And then the issue of lying. Let's discuss the issue of phone and the issue of lying too.
I'm still picking up on the phone
Thank you.
the phone issue.
Please do.
Okay, now you've said that someone comes, they leave the phone, and the first thing that the other person does is to pick it. That is now toxic. Touching the other person's phone is okay, and it should be as a by the way, not like it is always a routine that you want to check what happened. Remember, this man was himself before, and is still himself. By the way, in my understanding, when I try to research about men, they are difficult, yeah? When I try to research about men, I came to learn one thing. Nothing about how much you control will affect the decisions that the man makes.
Even if you catch him,
it will not make him faithful.
It's more of a decision.
It is a decision. And we said that the male man has an ego which they want to always shine.
Okay. And
no, wait. So in my opinion and in my research, in my psychology now, being always in this person's case, asking them about who called, who did this message comes from, and fine enough, you'll get what you're looking for. And men are also weird in the sense that if you show them that you are doubting them, then they will try to make that first step to actually satisfy your curiosity. It's not like us women who would say, oh, okay, my husband has started doubting me, let me relax. Now for them is, oh, this woman has started doubting me, okay, let me give them enough reasons,
let me accelerate it.
Yes.
And the issue of lying and phone, we want to discuss
phone, I would
it.
say, phone is a utility. It's just like car, like this microphone. And depending on how you've built your relationship, there are people that the husband car is the wife's car. You can come and pick. There are people, every marriage has a culture, every marriage has a spirit. If you have been built your marriage in that way, let it be that way. Now, phone, if you have built in such a way that you can use your husband's phone, you can use your phone without even asking anything, that is okay. If you have built a culture that you can go to the M-Pesa of your spouse and you can come to your M-Pesa and do whatever you want there, provided it explains to you, that is the culture that you have built. And every time you take your spouse's phone with an intention of seeing what is doing with that phone, it is abusive. I always say, I always remain in that ground. Every time you become a CID in your marriage, it is very abusive. There is an element of insecurity in that woman, and there is an element of mistrust in that lady. And again, you will begin to disturb yourself with unanswered questions that you cannot ask and an answered question that cannot be answered. Sometimes you can take my phone and you get a hanging message, just a hanging message, and it begins to disturb you and build doubts in yourself. I would rather people just respect other people's phone and not be guests to one another, be party of each other and trusting that the other one is doing good. As Janet is saying, there is no way you can control somebody that has decided to do funny things with their phone. In fact, it is good even when you don't catch them. When you catch them, they will not have anybody to hide from. Some things have not exploded because they are still hidden. But the moment you catch them, they say, okay, what am I fearing again? It is my space. So I would say people should respect. About lies, as you say, we discuss about lies in the matters of toxicity. Lying is abusive. You need to be as open as possible to try to help the other person to understand you. But you'll discover lying sometimes is a two-way traffic. If an open conversation always leads to disagreement, an open conversation leads to a fight, sometimes it pushes the other one now to begin to live a life of a lie, which is also wrong. It can decide, I better face the consequences of this toxic person than entering into another character of lying. You'll discover that if every time you come to me with the truth and it brings trouble, some people who are not strong enough will become weak and begin to lie. Yeah.
Okay, this brings me up because when we are talking about toxic men, husbands, Janet was very strong that men are pathological liars, and I wanted us to bring the issue of women lying and not to give an excuse why they lie, because lying is one of the characters of a toxic woman. They keep on telling lies. They lie about where they went. They lie about their whereabouts. They lie about their age. Yes. They lie about their education.
It's within.
They lie about everything. They lie even about their tribe. So it's very interesting. We want to take a short break. It's an interesting conversation we are having here about toxic wife. I think one of these fine days we are going to discuss about the phone. I have so many questions to ask to our able panelists here. One of these fine days we are going to talk about the phone. We take a short break. Follow us on our Facebook page, our YouTube account, and we are glad you are watching. Stay tuned. Thank you. Okay, we continue a very interesting conversation here. Welcome to the second phase, Janet and Reverend Alan. We are enjoying the show, him being a man, you being a woman. And I want to ask, what are some of the leading causes of a toxic woman? What leads somebody to be a toxic woman? A toxic girlfriend, a toxic wife? Because I also believe these women who decide to grab somebody's husband or somebody's are toxic. What pushes a woman to be toxic?
One thing in my observation, this is now an observation, is the past experiences, past relationships, past bitterness that we have not dealt with. So toxicity, like we said last time, arises from someone's background. But if you look at women, mostly it's about the past, what they've gone through. You know, a man can take a good woman and change her to be toxic. So not everyone that you married was toxic. Sometimes this toxicity comes from you. You create a toxic person out of someone who was healthy, quote unquote. So if people have not dealt with the issues that they have faced in life, it builds up step by step. And because women are emotional beings, it is now intertwined to our emotions. And what comes out is a very bitter, toxic person. Yes. Yes.
So it's more of the way you were brought up, the experiences you encounter.
Yes.
Mostly the negative ones.
Yes, the negative ones.
Yes.
I would say, number one, the issues of nurture. How somebody was nurtured. A child that grows up from a toxic family, whereby the mother was toxic, has a very high affinity to become a toxic wife, because she learns this is the way of women. A young man learns this is the way of men from the father, and a young woman learns this is the way of women from the mother. So a girl that was raised up by a mother that was a bully, abusive, a mother that was unfaithful, a mother that was toxic, has a higher possibility of becoming toxic in a marriage. Also, a girl that saw a toxic husband over a wife, her mother suffered under a toxic husband. She can become toxic in a marriage by fighting her father through fighting her husband. She can bring that personality of abusiveness so as to dominate, to control, to abuse the husband, because he saw her own father abusing the mother. Another thing can also be the issues of insecurity, insecurities. And this one normally comes when people are coming from different status of life. It could be a social status, cultural status, tribal status. Now, this one that is lesser always tries every method to be in charge of that husband, so as to try to level herself with the measure of the husband. A lady that is not well educated, married to a man that is so much educated, will try to do things so that he looks the exact woman for this man that is educated. In the process, she becomes toxic. Her own psychology will begin to instruct her on how to abuse this man and to bring him down, his ego down, to the level that his education becomes nothing before him. He begins to see this wife as somebody that is important. Same applies to a wife that comes from a struggling financial background, that is married to a person that was endowed. I would always also say it can be the issue of environment. Some women influence others. The Bible says, how can two walk together unless they agree? The Bible says that the bad company corrupts good morals. Many a times, women have a high affinity of following the crowd of other women. Women, sometimes if they get good at working women, they become good at working women. If they get bickering women, there is affinity of becoming. That's why we tell people, mind your crowd. If a wife crowds together with other toxic wives that speak ill of their husbands, discuss their husbands, abuse their husbands, cheat on their husbands, there is a possibility that she will get there. Another issue that can bring a toxic wife is when the husband has neglected the wife emotionally and even materially. Sometimes she's pushed into a corner and then she begins to have some toxic behavior. And also, another thing, a woman can become toxic wife so as to survive with the husband. Maybe the husband is another thing. So you have to become toxic so that you may be able to survive with that husband. So there are so many things that that can contribute.
Yes,
and maybe I can add something. If children are raised by a mother who's toxic and a father who is toxic, children learn more from the mother. So in this toxicity, we refer to the mother. As in, where did it begin? Refer to the mother. The implication of a mother's toxicity is higher, and that is research. It is higher than the father's. So if you see someone, like Reverend has said, you check out, especially their mother. It really says a lot about the person. And again, in the aspect of the environment, I'd like really to talk about maybe social media and these funny groups that people join. You see, slowly by slowly, a culture that was in you, that you were brought up in, is eroded. And you see it as a way of life. There's this thing people, I don't know, call goat wives or what. I've seen really good people who are well established in their families, pillars in their families, but now they are very eroded. So in this era of social media, as a woman, you should know where you stand. You should go back to your values every time you try to do things because it is flowing. These gossiping groups, these I don't know which kind of groups, they take you back to a person you've never been, actually.
Maybe I can also add another thing that can make a wife to become toxic. When a wife begins to get she was not used to independence, so she begins to get financial, economic, sometimes social independence. So like I saw somebody that the wife just turned to become into another thing when she got a job, another one when she went to school. Some men sometimes take their wives to the university and they find a lot of independence there, and choices are there to spoil her. I also discovered when a woman gets another man, she enters into an extramarital affairs. Women in extramarital affairs, they have a very higher affinity of becoming toxic to their husbands. They get some pride out of the other man that is chasing after them, or other men that is chasing after them. Actually, when I do counseling in church and I see some level of a toxic wife, I always begin to pray and tell God, help us to know if this woman has entered into an extramarital affairs. The thing that can make a woman to despise her husband sexually, it's because she's having another man. The thing that can make a woman to despise her husband economically, sometimes it's because he's having another person that is more economically strong. So one of the major things that pushes women to it, it's because of extramarital affairs.
Interesting. The issue of peer pressure is so much on women than men.
Yes.
The the issue of peer pressure through chamas, through social media, through hooking up with certain friends. So you want to join a certain status quo through the gym. Yeah, through the gym. There's a craze of
gym.
There's a craze of gym and fitness, which is okay, but it depends with whom you are hanging out with
or why you are gymming, you know.
Why you're gymming.
Because in toxicity, you can be toxic to your own body. Yeah, you see, in your attempt to please your husband or your man, you're going an extra mile, and that is not something from within. When women bleach themselves, that is toxicity. It is toxicity. It is your own creation of toxicity.
Interesting.
Yes.
I read somewhere where a wife used to eat and then induces vomit so that she doesn't gain weight. That could be a source of toxicity to please the man, because the man does not want. I think also another issue is the image, the way words, negative words, maybe from your boyfriend or from your husband or from the man that you honor, can contribute to toxicity, because they pull and destroy your image.
And even sometimes the wife's family, sometimes they despise the man that has married you, and they begin to pump some arrogance in the wife, and they make you think otherwise you can go back.
And by the way, they can build up so strongly. If a woman listens to their side, to her side of the family, that marriage won't work.
Even friends,
Even
sometimes
friends.
they tell you, where were you looking for when you took this guy?
And you know, once a woman, I earlier said about exposing your husband their weaknesses. You see, once you expose your man to your siblings, to your parents, that is how they will view him for the rest of your lives. Yeah, so it affects the man.
So I come to this other interesting conversation, and I will begin candidly with the Reverend Alan, because he's a man. What are some of the effects that men get from a toxic wife or girlfriend?
That which the toxicity of a wife makes a man to be. Number one is low self-esteem. They kill a man's esteem completely. And they make you to begin to look down upon yourself, and you begin to feel like you are not worthy enough. Number two, they also destroy your moral standings in the society. Some people that have great values, they begin to get loose because they are looking for the affirmation outside. My wife abuses me, but I have to look for another woman that affirms me. And sometimes they go to other women, sometimes they go back to their families, or sometimes they go to drunkenness, alcoholism, to look for the affirmation. Number three, it kills their willpower. They surrender to fate, because a toxic woman, there's nothing you can do to satisfy her. Her attitude is already corrupted, so their willpower goes down. Their ability to fight for the best of the family is no longer there. As a man, I think a toxic woman, a toxic wife, also make a man to be a coward. He begins to fear to approach life and fears to fail, because if you fail, this toxic woman will really be on you. If you fail, the society will be really on you. So the man develops a culture of being afraid in life. He becomes timid. He cannot express himself. It kills the identity of a man. It kills his identity. In fact, sometimes it brings man to a loneliness, because outside there, people are asking him, why is it that your woman is behaving like that? And the problem with a toxic wife is everybody knows that your wife is toxic. Everybody knows. And you also know, but you pretend that you don't know. So you have to avoid people, even your family members, that can confront you. And to some extent, it can push them to committing suicide. It can push them to depression, to madness. The mental health issues begin to crop up. So I think that is, yeah.
Janet, what are some of the effects that we cause to men when we become toxic as women?
I'll emphasize what Pastor has said, because he has said actually most of what I wanted to say, but they become so timid. They cannot approach life like a man. Again, they lose their position as the head of the family. Maybe not physically or anything, but they are just there. They are just there. Another thing is that they grow they have a lot of hatred towards the woman. So even if the man used to love their woman so much, when toxicity builds up, then hatred also builds up, but you just cope so that the society sees that this family is functional. But in the real sense, it leads to a dysfunctional family. Then again, low sex drive. So you may even find that the woman is complaining that this man is not, I don't know what, in bed, he never used to be that way, but it's because the man has been pushed. When the ego of the man is crushed, it affects them sexually a lot more. I think even combined with the low self-esteem, low sex drive, and of course they view themselves as nothing.
And also some men retire they become non-performers in their jobs. They decide
docility.
They become docile. In as much as they want to put effort, they're not appreciated, they're not affirmed, they're not honored. A man is supposed to conquer. And the issue of esteem and ego. Do men have ego or esteem?
Even before that, one of the things again, they push men to live a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Some men will begin to have some secret life as their survival nest. They can begin to have a secret family or a secret investment somewhere, or they go back and begin to work behind the scenes with their parents, especially their mother, as a safety nest. Men, about esteem and ego, they one leads to the other one, and one depends with the other one. The ego, man has an ego. He's supposed to have an ego, and this ego is built by the esteem.
Mm-hmm.
If the esteem is not there, the ego is destroyed. If the esteem is there, the ego will be there. So man needs both. But if you want to destroy a man, you destroy his ego. But you destroy the ego of a man by destroying his esteem.
Okay.
Yeah.
So men have both the esteem and the ego.
Right.
Now we want to wrap up our show, and I'll begin with Janet. How do we deal with a toxic girlfriend, a toxic wife, concubine, third,
If it's a girlfriend, you leave.
You can't change it.
Yes, you can. That one
If
you
you've
change.
No
not
need of
married,
trouble.
you leave.
Yeah. If you're not married, you just leave. And if you don't live now, you live later, or you'll just survive. If it's now in a marriage setup, that one calls for counseling. It calls for counseling, but again, it takes the woman to accept that they're indeed toxic. If they don't accept, of which most of them don't. You see, these toxic women, I think, in my opinion, they are worse than men, toxic men. Because
you said men are difficult, then again toxic.
no, men are difficult, but women, toxic women, even you as a woman, me as a woman, when I meet with a toxic woman, my friend, it is the most difficult thing that you have to deal with. And I think the toxicity of men is different from the toxicity of women. You see, for women, it comes with a lot of bitterness, a lot of negative energy, a lot of violence. Yes, aggressiveness. So it calls for counseling, acceptance that you have an issue. But again, in my opinion, for a toxic woman, it is more of prayers. It is a spirit, a Jezebel spirit.
I wanted to come there. In the Bible, it's called Jezebel. Jezebel pushed her husband to do all bad things. All bad things. Jezebel is an example, a prototype of a toxic woman. The husband killed because of Jezebel. The husband took people's property. Jezebel would put pressure on her husband, and Jezebel would sleep with other men, and Jezebel would manipulate the entire kingdom. So actually, it's a Jezebelic spirit. You need prayer, number one. But before there, what I actually would say is for a man to man up. A woman has been created in a way that they are called to submit to men. But just like children, like men, like everyone, they always test grounds. And if they test this ground, they gain ground. They gain ground until they come to the ground that was not meant for them. And I said as I began, toxic wives, they pretend that they can live, but they don't have the bones to live. They don't have the bones to live. They cannot live. They will only engage you. As you said, they can relate with you forever. They can only live when they are sure that they are heading to somebody's hand, to another man's hand, of which they are not there. Men just use these women again. Again, they end up in toxic relationships. They are used by men to abuse their men, and they leave. So a man, the husband of a toxic wife, must man up. Take your place as a husband and as a man. It is costly, sometimes very costly, but you have to fight for that space yourself. When you fight for that space, you push her to the level that she will agree to look for help, for the counseling. Instead of you succumbing every time, and she will keep on demanding and demanding until you kill yourself, just stand your ground. One by one, keep on taking back your ground until you take back your ground as a leader. Your wife is toxic because you have refused to take a leadership role. You've become a coward. You cannot confront her behaviors. One of the leadership role of a man over his wife is to take a leadership role is to inform her behavior, not to entertain bad behaviors. So it normally starts during the time of relationship. You entertain some behaviors. You enter into marriage, you entertain some behaviors. Then that behavior become her culture. You have to man up, take your place, stand your ground. Stand your ground. Don't care what you're going to lose, but stand your ground, and you'll defend yourself, and you'll defend your children, and you'll defend this woman that you love. Because if you love her and you leave her to be toxic like that, you are setting her for destruction. To some extent, it has led to others taking a step of divorce, and I have seen it. But I would not want people to go there. You go there because you entertain her for a long time. But the good thing with women, they have very good elasticity. If you take your ground, they will return. They will come back to where they are supposed to be. Yeah. As a pastor, I normally advise men, man up, take your place, take your ground, provide, give direction, take your place as a husband. But above all, stand her. Stand her, tell her this is not right. Cry, scream, pack your things, go away, do whatever you want to do, but I am not going to cede my ground until you become the woman that the world expects and God expects. Yeah.
Thank you. Interesting thoughts here. Interesting conversation with Reverend Alan and Janet. We've been talking about toxic wives and girlfriends, and we have given our best. And it's our prayer that this conversation will help somebody bring change and make informed decisions before you enter into a marriage or before you destroy your life. It is from us, Friday Conversation with Reverend Alan. Thank you, our cameraman, our sound man, Carlos, cameraman, Derek. We really appreciate your efforts. And we just want to say bye. See you next time. God bless you.
Bye.